Wars Season 7. So this season of The Clone Wars was a long way coming. After Disney purchased Lucasfilm, the Clone Wars animated series was cancelled, and a couple of the story arcs that the creators wanted to tell couldn't happen. But fortunately, with the release of Disney Plus, The Clone Wars was able to finish and we got the final season. So what do I think of it? Well, I think it's only fair to judge this season on the 3 individual arcs that make up this season. Every 4 episodes gave us a new story arc with different characters and different scenarios that really stand on their own as little like mini movies. The first one was about the Bad Batch, the second one was about Ahsoka, 2 sisters, and the spice trade, and the third one was spoilers. Yeah, I'm going to try to make this as spoiler-free as possible because especially when you get to that third story arc, things happen, and it's things that you know is going to happen from episode 3, but because it just came out, I want you guys to experience it yourself if you haven't seen it already. So I'm going to be talking about these as if they're completely separate. Now the first story arc is pretty good, but kind of forgettable. It's a story about clone troopers that actually reminded me of the ARC Trooper segment from the 2003 Clone Wars animated shorts. And it's always fun seeing clone troopers interact, and this show does a really good job at giving humanity to the clone troopers. Even though they're all voiced by the same person and they are identical clones of each other, they're given different hairstyles, different tattoos, different quirks, especially with the Bad Batch that we meet in these episodes, who are rejected clones, with each having their little defects. They're given a lot of personality, and it's really cool to see, but if you've seen the rest of the series, this is kind of a run-of-the-mill story. There's not too much interesting that happens. There is one scene with Anakin towards the end that's pretty interesting. You see a little bit of dark side in him without giving away too much. So yeah, it's okay. It's kind of forgettable. It didn't really feel like a series finale kind of story though. So when I was watching it, I'm like, okay, this is fun, Clone Wars action, but that's it. There wasn't all that much to get excited about. And then came the second story arc. And this one is by far the most boring of the show. Now everyone's already talked about this middle section and how incredibly lame it is compared to the rest of the show. Yeah, I'm kind of in the same boat. The story arc with Ahsoka and the 2 sisters and the spice trading, it's an interesting idea, and it does tie things together with Solo and Darth Maul and the Pikes, and you do get a better sense of the underworld, but it's just not written that well. Now personally, I like Ahsoka. Initially, I wasn't too fond of Ahsoka, because at first I was like, Anakin shouldn't have a Padawan, because it was never established in any of the lore beforehand, and they're messing with stuff. I don't really like this, but they do a good job across the entire show on making Ahsoka likable. Now Anakin really does care about her, and it makes it even more heartbreaking when they both have to leave the Jedi for different reasons. Now at this point, Ahsoka has left the Jedi and is out on her own and trying to find out how life works outside of the Jedi Council. And here she meets 2 sisters that really don't serve much. They're kind of just average, normal people. They didn't really have anything too interesting going on. The relationships between each other were kind of lame. And while I still very much like Ahsoka, her in this story was kind of underused. She didn't really get to use the Force a lot. She was kind of undercover. And the whole thing with the sisters was just forgettable. And there wasn't a whole lot of fun action like with the clones. It was just a lot of talking, sneaking around, and I just didn't care for it. It's not by any means the worst that this show has put out, but it's far from the best and far from the hype that this season was built up for. So far watching it, I was kind of lukewarm on this season as a whole. I mean, it wasn't terrible. They still had 4 more episodes to go, so they could make it really awesome. And Darth Maul was introduced. That's cool, even though he didn't do much. Maybe they could do better. Boy, oh boy, they did. Holy cow. These last 4 episodes are amazing. It totally turns around this entire season. You could just watch these final 4 episodes and be completely satisfied. And sadly, because I'm keeping this as spoiler-free as possible, I can't really get into why this works so well, but talking generally, this story arc follows Ahsoka leading the siege of Mandalore that we've heard about in other media, and here we actually get to see it, and it is breathtaking. It actually reminded me a lot of the Megiddo fight from Revenge of the Sith, where Coyote-Mundi died. You remember that? It kind of looks like that, but with Mandalorians and Darth Maul and all this craziness happening. But that only lasts the first couple episodes. From then on, it just cranks it up to 11. And here's what's really important. I can't tell you exactly what happens. If you know Star Wars, you know that the Clone Wars end about halfway through Revenge of the Sith. And this final story arc takes you right up to that. In fact, they actually show clips of dialogue and scenes that are taken directly from Revenge of the Sith, just rendered through 3D animation. And that gives a definitive time and place for these final 4 episodes, where if you're keeping track through the episodes on where things are in the movie, you can follow along and you realize something big is going to happen. And when that thing, that turning point happens, it's so satisfying. And it really adds a lot more weight to what happens in Revenge of the Sith. Now, where I stand on the prequels is they're fine. I think you could completely write off episode 1. Episode 2, there's a little bit there, but it's by far the least interesting. And episode 3, I fully think is a good movie, although it still succumbs to the flaws that are just inherent in that trilogy, from where they started to where they have to be. So it doesn't always work, but it is the most interesting and it tries really hard to be a good movie. These final 4 episodes actually elevate episode 3 to being one of the better Star Wars stories out there. Because the things that are glossed over or not given that much depth in episode 3 are given depth here, and you really feel it. You feel the entire weight of episode 3 happening in these final 4 episodes. And it's so good. So yeah, a little bit shorter video for you guys this week. There's a lot more to talk about that's in this final season, so if you want a spoiler-filled video, comment below and I'll get on that. But in the meantime, I highly suggest you check out this final season of Clone Wars if you haven't already. If you don't have the time to watch the entire season, definitely watch the last 4 episodes. It had such dimension to Ahsoka, Darth Maul, the Mandalorians, Captain Rex. It makes episode 3 so much better. So as always, click like and subscribe and hit that notification bell to get notified every time I upload a video. I may do 2 next week if you really want a spoiler version of this. And as always, I'm Colby. This was my Nerdy Talk, and I'll see you in the next video.